Hi, it's Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at the new Thermaltake TH420 ARGB Sync V2. Hopefully I got that name slightly right. This is their new and improved version, hence the V2, of the existing TH420 name. Sorry, I'm really struggling with that because whenever I hear 420, you obviously know what you're thinking. Definitely a Thug Life moment. But aside from that, this is a massive cooler. It's absolutely huge. As you probably guess, it is a 420mm cooler. So that is going to be using three 140mm fans. And that is also something which is new in this particular model. So this is now upgraded. We're now going to be using the new CT140 ARGB Sync fans. So there's a lot of things that they've changed on this design to make it a little bit better, a little bit quieter and all that kind of good stuff. Amongst which they have actually changed the pump as well. New pump. This has now got a PWM pump with actually a very low profile impeller, which now spins at a much lower rate, somewhere between 1500 and 3000 RPM. If that's different, I'll put it on the screen, but it's kind of around there. I haven't tested yet, so I don't know the exact profile of it, but it's not really nice to see that Thermaltake are kind of pushing boundaries, trying to make changes rather than just sitting on their laurels with their existing model, the TH420. They've upgraded it, added some new features. We've also got a new pump head design. We've got a rotatable design on there as well. So looking very cool. Lots of very interesting things to go through in this. So we're going to go through, do a quick unboxing, see what we actually get in the box, look at all the fittings and fixtures, etc. One of the things I can say straight away, it's universal. So regardless of when you're watching this, within reason, this should fit your system. So this works with systems as far back as AM2 and very old Intel systems on the 11.5X platform, right up to the latest and greatest. So we're looking at 12th, 13th and 14th gen Intel, and also AM3, AM4 and AM5 systems. So pretty much going to be something for everyone here. And as well as something for everyone, the launch price of this is absolutely staggering. If you look around at radiators, the 420 size ones, especially ARGB and ones which are pretty decent, you'd be very lucky to find one at a similar price point. The launch price of this, £129.99 here in the UK, available from various retailers such as Scan, Amazon, etc, etc. Obviously, as always, we'll be leaving links for those in the video description so you can check this out, and the current pricing at the time this video goes out or whenever you're watching it. So first of all, let's take a quick tour around the box and see what it's all about. Obviously, most of it I've said already, but you can get a good look at the product and what it looks like. So this is the TH420 V2 ARGB Sync AIO liquid cooler. Quite a mouthful again. So this is a copper-based design. Obviously, relatively low noise. We're looking at 34.7 dBA. Now this is measured actually in one of those kind of specialist sound chambers, so you probably will get a little bit of a different result in your own home if you actually put a tester right up next to it. But as far as industry testing goes, that is the result it comes out with. And as you can see there, PWM. So this is the PWM for the fans. The fans themselves, the CT140 ARGBs, as we've seen previously before, because you can buy these individually. So if you're actually looking at putting one of these in your system and using those fans elsewhere to give you a nice cohesive look, then you certainly can do. These spin between 500 and 1800 RPM. Excellent fans, like them a lot. And part of the reason why this is actually coming in at a very good price point is because obviously these fans are something that Thermaltake do all day long in a lot of their new cases. So obviously with that there is the economies of scale, so you can afford to put them in on items like this and keep prices down low. Something else which some of you may appreciate is the fact that this uses the standard ARGB formats. Now Thermaltake are really well known for all the things they do in the RGB world, such as their TT RGB software and all of their proprietary kit, but if for some reason you don't want to get too involved in that and you've got other RGB systems in your computer, don't worry, this works with your standard 5V 3-pin addressable RGB and is compatible with the likes of MSI, BioStar, ASUS, ASRock, Gigabyte, etc, etc. On the back of the box is going to go through some of the key features, so I'll give you some close-ups of that. So obviously you've got your copper base. Also included, you get those really nice Thermaltake security plastic wedges, or whatever you want to call them, the clips, which go over your addressable RGB cables to stop them falling apart. I really do like those. Those are excellent. You also get the new pump design, etc. And also there are the specifications, as you can see, with all of the PWM data there for you to check out. Other than that, I think that is pretty much it. So let's take a look and see what we actually get inside the box. So the first thing you're going to notice are the CT140 fans. We've seen these before on the channel. These are excellent, and actually I've got them currently running in the Series 500, which actually is the perfect case for this type of cooler because it will take a 420mm radiator, that is something which you are going to have to consider if you like the look of this and you like the price and you're thinking, wow, excellent cooling performance, but will it physically fit in my PC? Now obviously Series 500 will do, and most of the CTE range and some of the C and T ranges as well, but do check your PC first of all for compatibility, because effectively you're going to have 3 of these put together on the radiator, so it's a pretty chunky beast, so do make your measurements first. But these fans are excellent, like I said, between 500 and 1800 RPMs, really nice construction, very strong. Basically they're tough fans but cheaper, and you've got 9 RGB elements in here, so you can do lighting styles to suit whatever. Rubber grommets both sides, and also really cool feature for especially for radiators is the pass-through technology. So you've got a PWM connector, 4-pin PWM, and also you have a piggyback as well, so you can daisy chain them, and the same for the addressable RGB. The cables on these are actually very, very short indeed. Now that is for a reason, obviously for the idea of daisy chaining, but don't worry, Thermaltake got you covered. There are some extensions included in the fittings kit. So let's take a look at the fittings kit before we go on and look at the radiator itself. So as I said, you've got the extensions there, one of each. So you've got PWM for your fans and addressable RGB for the RGB. Happy days, exactly what you need. And yeah, they've got piggybacks as well, so you can daisy chain them even further should you need to. So now let's take a deeper look at the accessories. So as I said, with the daisy chaining, if you are linking these things together, these little Thermaltake plastic clips are absolutely excellent. They hold those clips together, so probably if you've used addressable RGB before, you'll know that the 3-pin 5-volt connectors do have a tendency to come loose, and a little bit of a tug in the back of your wiring, in the back of your PC, and they've got a tendency to fall apart, leaving exposed wires, etc. Never a good thing, so make sure you use your Thermaltake clips, and that will hold them nicely in place. 4 of those included, obviously 3 fans, plus the RGB on the pump head, which we'll take a look at later. When it comes to actually mounting it to your motherboard, so there's a reasonably complex amount of parts here, but it is relatively simple at the same time. So if you're going with Intel systems, then you're going to be using one of the Intel backplates. So there are 2 included, one of which does the 115X and the LGA 1200. The other one is specifically designed for LGA 1700. They are clearly printed actually on there. These are a combination, I'm not entirely sure. They feel like plastic, they wobble, but they do feel somewhat metallic as well at the same time. So I'm not sure whether it's metal with plastic coating, not too sure, but nice and sturdy, which is always a nice thing to see for your motherboard's backplate. I should mention, if you're using the AM4, AM5 or some of the older AMD systems, then you use the backplate which is supplied with your motherboard. That is very straightforward, and also use the plastic clips which are attached to the motherboard, so no real motherboard disassembly required for the AM4 or AM5 platforms. When it comes to actually mounting the pump head onto your motherboard, then there's 2 options. So we have the square one, which is this one here. So this basically slots in the side of the pump and attaches down with screws for the Intel setup. If you're using AMD, AM4, AM5, etc., usual sort of deal. So this clips in again around the pump head, and then you've got the AM4 screws which screw down into the backplate, which are included in this kit here. So you've got your 4 spring-loaded mechanisms there. So there's 4 included, because if you're using Intel, then you use 4 corners. For AMD, then you only use 2, and you've got these little lugs there which attach over the top of the AM4 platform. We'll take a look at that a little bit later when we do the installation. Also, obviously for Intel side of things, so you've got your screws there, all clearly labelled on the bag. So depending on what you are, LJ 1200, 15X, 2011, etc, etc. So that's pretty straightforward, can't go too far wrong with that. And last of all, you have the standard mounting screws. So you've got 12 long thread screws. Those are for mounting your fans to the radiator. Then you've got 12 smaller screws for actually mounting the radiator to your case. Again, we'll try and show you that a little bit later on. Although in our particular setup, because we're using this Series 500, things are a little bit easier, so we may not need all of this, but hopefully you'll get the right idea. So speaking of that, let's take a look at the radiator and then we can get on with the installation. And looking at the radiator is a massive thing. Look, it's absolutely huge. So obviously this is 420mm radiator. I'll put the exact dimensions on the screen, because although they're called 420 or 360 or 420, obviously they are slightly bigger than that. They are referring to the actual dimensions of the fans that you can fit on them. So this is a little bit longer. So again, you will need to check those dimensions to make sure it'll fit physically in your case. They've got a new design here. So we're looking at 27mm thick, and also the actual radiator core itself, 20mm thick, so a little bit thicker than it was previously. Essentially, that is going to give you more thermal mass. As if 420mm radiators didn't have enough thermal mass already, they've given you slightly more, which is always excellent. And talking of giving you slightly more, they've given you slightly more in terms of the length of the pipes as well. So the pipes now measure in at 460mm, giving you a little bit more flexibility. So depending where you're actually going to mount this radiator in your chassis, you've got a really nice long set of pipes there. So you shouldn't have any issues at all getting it over onto your motherboard and mounting it onto your CPU. When it comes to the actual pump head, it's actually quite difficult for me to show you, so hopefully there will be some added B-roll so you can see what this exactly looks like. Done a really nice job on this. The pipes go in the side, they feel very nice, and they are able to rotate and pivot, so you can move those around depending on how you mount it. Now some people often get concerned about this because this has addressable RGB lighting, an infinity mirror effect, and they're a little bit worried that it may not be facing the right way up. Don't worry, Thermaltake got you covered as always, and this top section rotates so you can twist that around. Hopefully again we'll be showing you some B-roll of that so you can see it in its full glory. On the bottom, got nice copper cool plates, a nice big size one as well, so for newer processors where they do have some slightly unusual shapes, especially the Intel ones with their elongated actual cores. So yeah, that should give you some pretty decent coverage, and also you've got a really nice plastic there. I'm hoping that the new motor in here is a little bit quieter. Sometimes with AIOs, you tend to hear the pumps and a little bit of whining coming from them. That is kind of nature of the beast because it is a motor and it's also encapsulated in a plastic housing. It kind of adds to it and reverberates. So yeah, be interesting to see how this performs. It should do really well, being the fact that we have got a PWM connection for the actual pump, which is, like I said, a very new thing. Generally for AIOs, it's actually very rare to have a PWM connection. Generally, they all tend to be DC 12 volt and a 3-pin connection. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this performs and what the RPM rev range is like. That'll be interesting. And also you've got your addressable RGB connections, again, with a piggyback or pass-through connector, so you can daisy chain them if you don't have many connections on your motherboard. And speaking of which, we should get this connected to our motherboard, so let's get on and do that next. Okay, so we've got the majority of it set up here, so just so you can see what's going on. So the Series 500 mounting plate is here, sandwiched in between our radiator at the back, fans at the front. So now it's just a matter of lining up the screws and putting all the screws through, and then you can put all of this in one unit. And when you're actually putting this together, top tip is with the radiator, have the pipes on the end and just have them hanging over the end of the table, so you can get it nice and flat and a nice stable work surface to work from. Makes life a whole lot easier. Now I'm going to go ahead and line up the rest of these fans and get the screws put in, and then we can put it inside the case. Okay, so we've got the radiator installed, so we've got the fans on the front, so the series clip just slots on. You might need to remove this panel. Some of the wires were in the way for me. A little bit tricky to do that, but this is a huge radiator. And as you can possibly see from the side, there's the radiator on the back side of the plate, and yeah, it gives us an absolute ton of room. We could have the CPU cooler quite far away, so hopefully that's going to look quite nice when it's done. But that's all done, so we can put the front panel back on now on the Series 500, which clips in relatively easily on the front. And there we go. Next, let's remove this monstrosity and replace it with this. Okay, so now we've got that fitted, so now it's time to set up the pump. So we've got our AM5 setup, as you can see in the background there, and with the clamp, so the clamps go like that, and with the open side away from the tubes. Obviously, if you put it on the other way, it's not going to fit in anyway. So what we do is a very, very small indentation along there, a little line. So grab the plate, stick it in there, and push it all the way across, and then it locks into place. So that is nice and secure. So now we're ready to actually attach that. Literally all we need to do is to get these little parts here, and then it's just thumb screws on top to tighten it up. So yeah, very simple to do over the existing AM4 brackets. So you can see there, sorry, one of the screws is rolling away and the cat's eating, but there you go. You can see that is the mounting. So it clips over there and it clips over there. Happy days. I gotta stop dropping stuff. Okay, so we're back and we've done the testing, and I've got to say I'm pretty stoked how well this cooler does. It is very, very powerful indeed. Surprisingly so, actually, we did get some pretty decent results running through Cinebench on our system. So just to recap, our system behind us, AM5 platform, Ryzen 7 7700X. I've done it in a few various configurations. You'll be seeing all the information on the screen anyway. So I've done it with the stock settings, basically all the motherboard settings left completely as stock, let it do whatever it wants with the voltages, the wattages, all that kind of stuff. And that is with the Noctua NHU12S, which is normally installed in the computer, for those of you that have been watching previously. And then also I've done a test with just doing a direct replacement, so taking that out, installing this, running exactly the same tests, all the same wattages, etc., to see what the difference is there. Then also I thought, well, let's play around a little bit and see what we can actually do with this. So then I went in and reduced the actual TDP of the system to 95 watts, and also did a little bit of undervolting, so got the results for that as well. And then finally I thought, well, what the hell, let's just reduce it to its bare minimum, set it to a 65 watt TDP on the processor and see what it does. And actually the results are pretty decent. I'm quite impressed. Between the kind of worst and the best, there's about 1200 points difference in Cinebench R23, which is actually a sizable amount. And also between the coolers, yeah, fantastic value for money. This works really well. And actually there are some pros and cons. Now, some of the pros are the fact that obviously it's got a lot of thermal mass, so it can keep processors cool. And in fact, in running some of the tests, this is the first time that I've ever seen any cooler at all manage to run Cinebench and not throttle. That was actually something which surprised me. I've not seen that before. I did run one test, and literally at the very end of the 10-minute test, it just peaked into the red on the core, or the package I think it was. So it didn't quite hit it in terms as the top temperature, but the package one did just slightly go into the red, but literally all the way through, no red in there whatsoever, so no throttling and no getting over that voltage, which was a very, very impressive thing to see. I've never seen that before on this processor at all. So in terms of that, yeah, it's setting new standards as far as the equipment that we've been testing here. It's been absolutely great. And let's take a look now in more detail at the actual temperatures. So we'll start off with the slides here. So this is the actual lowest recorded temperatures for each of the 4 setups. So we've got the stock setting with the Noctua NHU12 at the top there. So that is 38.6 degrees Celsius. We've then got the stock setting. So this is the TH420 V2 default configuration. Dropped considerably there, down to 35.6 degrees Celsius. Then we went ahead and actually reduced the wattage, the TDP, down to 95 watts and a minus 30 undervolt. And that netted us actually slightly more, bizarrely, 36.0, I believe it was. So yeah, within margin of error there, 0.4 degrees between that and the stock setting. But actually what made the difference is reducing the TDP down to 65 watts with the undervolt of minus 30 as well as the magnitude. We got down to 35.1 degrees Celsius. Now all of this is in a 22 degree room, so to give you some idea of what the temperature is like. So that is the lowest recorded temperatures. Let's take a look at the highest recorded temperatures. So again, starting off at the top there, we've got the stock settings with the Noctua fan, and that is at 95.6, which is kind of like the thermal limit. Then direct replacement, got this in, the TH420 V2, we're looking at 92.6 degrees Celsius. Again, one of the first times that I've not seen the temperatures go into the red for this particular setup. So very impressive, completely unleashed, 140 watts going through at least. And yeah, it's not even hitting the thermal throttle limit of 95 Celsius. So well done, excellent job, TH420 V2. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at the same, so 95 watt TDP with a minus 30 undervolt. And now we're dropping down underneath 90, so we're at 89.3 degrees Celsius, which is excellent. And of course, if you do want to keep things really, really cool, but you will lose a little bit in terms of performance, then you can limit it to a 65 watt TDP and also do the minus 30 undervolts, and this will give you a temperature of 63.8 degrees Celsius. So actually a very, very significant jump there, almost 30 degrees difference just by reducing that. And in terms of actually Cinebench, you don't drop a huge amount. So potentially that might be the way to go. That is effectively running in eco mode. So finally, let's take a look at the Cinebench scores. You've possibly seen them on the screen anyway, but let's go through them for the sake of it. So first of all, stock settings with the Noctua, and this is 18,705. Again, 140 watts putting through there. Next up, stock configuration with the TH420 V2. We're looking at 19,138 points. So a significant difference there, around about 400 plus points. Happy days, definitely an improvement there. Then when we look at our undervolt and also limiting the TDP to 95 watts, we're getting a score of 19,891 points. So again, a very significant jump there. Almost, what's that, 750 points, give or take. Some quick math there. A significant jump over the original. So we're looking at an extra 1,200 points between the Noctua and the Thermaltake there. And finally, just for the sake of completeness, looking at the 65 watt or eco mode version, again with the -30 magnitude undervolt there. And we are looking at 19,023 points, which even still is still beating the stock performance with the Noctua cooler, although obviously isn't quite apples to apples. But if you are considering using a lot less wattage, we're looking at roughly 40 wattage less on a full load, really about 30 degrees difference in temperature. The points difference isn't huge. So if rendering is your thing and maybe you're rendering stuff pretty much all day long, or you're just running CPU intensive tasks all day long, might be worth enabling eco mode, going for that 65 watt setup with a cooler like this and just keeping it bound right in the very low 60 degrees. Again, this is AM5, this is a Ryzen 7 7700X. It basically wants to run at 95 degrees Celsius all day long if it possibly can. And with this on, you can get it as low as 63.8 degrees Celsius, which is astonishing. And again, like I said, even with the stock settings, if you run it just flat out, let it do whatever it's wanting the voltages, just leave the BIOS alone entirely, you still will come in under 95 watts, even though the processor is desperately trying to get to that. But this will prevent it from doing it. Potentially it will do the same for Intel systems as well. I'm yet to test that. I would love to test this on my 13900, but that is doing other things at the moment, so maybe that will be visited in potentially another video. But I think that's going to pretty much wrap things up. This video's probably gone on for way too long as it is. I wanted to give you a lot of information about this and show you it, see what the deal is. It isn't the easiest to fit because it's massive. 420mm radiators are going to be a challenge for a lot of people. And depending on the case you're putting it into, that may be slightly more simplified, it may be harder. Now actually, on another side note, we do have a review coming up of another Thermaltake case coming out very soon, one of the CTE range, the centralized thermal efficiency, which actually this is going to be a prime candidate to go in there. So we may well be revisiting this particular setup in another case very soon. So obviously do stay subscribed for that to see how well it goes, and possibly with a different setup as well. Maybe the Intel 13900K. Be interesting to see how it does against that. But anyway, back to this. I think for the value, yeah, the raw brute performance of this, the thermal mass, those crazy fans which move an absolute ton of air, it's just a nuts cooler. And for £130, yeah, I don't think you can really beat it. And previously, the earlier model of this, just the regular TH420, at the moment in the UK is about £10 to £15 more expensive. So if you are thinking of a 420 rad, then obviously if you're looking at a Thermaltake one anyway, it makes sense to go for the V2 because it's cheaper. But if you look around at other ones on the market, then potentially this is going to be a better option overall. But what I think about it isn't really important. What you think about it is. So do let us know in that comment section what you think. I've got to be honest with you, like I said, I'm stoked. I think this thing's brilliant, and especially for the money. But do please let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. And hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.